Hello, everyone. Welcome to video 10 of Two-Way ANOVA, the last video for Two-Way ANOVA. Here, we are going to go through the Check Your Learning exercise for our two-way between subjects ANOVA, looking at the effects of political orientation and gender on anti-feminist prejudice. And so, again, my goal here for Two-Way ANOVA is not for you to be is not to test you in writing up fully a two-way ANOVA, but to just understand what's going on in the analysis, so you can answer a series of questions like this, 1 through 9. So hopefully you went through and were able to answer these questions, and we'll check if you got them right. So we'll start with there we go, the means table here. And so we'll go through sort of the same steps that we did for the lecture example. So first we'll transpose these means here into a more digestible, understandable table over here. And so we'll start again with male liberals. And so here we have liberal male, so that's 3.73. And then liberal women are right below. And so we'll go ahead and put that there. So that's 2.30 rounded up. And then down here we have conservative men, 5.14, and then conservative women, 3.67. And then we need the marginal means for gender and the marginal means for political orientation. So if we look down here at the totals, we have men and women, their total, their marginal means down here. So we'll go ahead and do those maybe first. So we have men 4.89, women 3.13. And then for liberals, if we see liberal total, conservative total, liberal total, so that's 2.64 and then 4.37. So always remember, marginal means are the totals in the SPSS output table here. And then if we make our line graph here, since we have our cell means, our line graph should look something like that. And immediately, maybe just comment right away, right? If we look at the separate lines for men and women here, does not look like there's an interaction going on, but we'll see. We have to first address the main effects. So we'll look at whether the marginal means for men and women, collapsing across, averaging across political orientation, is there a gender difference? And then is there a main effect of political orientation? That is, is there a difference between liberals and conservatives collapsing across, averaging across political orientation here? And to figure that out, we need to go to the ANOVA table. And so I have the means table down here just to help us interpret what's going on. And the first thing that we can do, of course, is cross out the shit that we don't need to look at. So we can cross out the first two rows and the last two rows of the cross out the first two rows and the last two rows. There we go. And then we're left with 4 rows here. We have a row for political orientation, a row for gender, and then we have a row for the interaction term, and then we have our error row. So let's take a look at the first row here for political orientation, the main effect of political orientation. And so again, we are assessing whether the marginal means for political orientation are significantly different. So do liberals and conservatives significantly differ here on feminist prejudice? And if we take a look at the sig value here, we get p exactly equal to 0.001. So our p-value is significant, so our main effect of political orientation is significant. So conservatives here are reporting significantly more anti-feminist prejudice compared to liberals. Next, we have our main effect of gender here. So is there a difference between men and women and their marginal means, averaging across political orientation? Do we find a gender difference in anti-feminist prejudice? Well, if we look at the sig value here, we get a sig value of 0.000. Again, we denote this as p less than 0.001, so there is a significant main effect of gender. So overall, we find a gender difference such that men are reporting significantly more anti-feminist prejudice compared to women. Not that big of a surprise, but and if we just look at maybe the partial eta squareds here to compare how well political orientation versus gender are predicting anti-feminist prejudice, they're about this. They're pretty equal. We have 6.5% versus 7.1%. There doesn't seem to be a big difference here. So political orientation and gender are both about equally predicting anti-feminist prejudice here. So we have a significant main effect of political orientation. We have a significant main effect of gender. And now, will there be an interaction between political orientation and gender? That is the difference between liberals and conservatives, will that replicate for both men and women? And we're also interested to see if the gender difference overall here, men reporting more anti-feminist prejudice compared to women, will we see that gender difference replicate for both liberals and for conservatives? And so if we take a look at the interaction term here, we see that our sig value for the interaction term, remember it's the interaction term in the ANOVA table is denoted by one variable, and then we have the little asterisk, and then we have the other variable. So the sig value here for the interaction term is 0.96, very non-significant. So yeah, we don't have a significant interaction. And if we take a look back at the line graph, as we already noted at the beginning of the video, the lines here are pretty darn parallel. It doesn't look like there is an interaction going on, and the ANOVA table confirms that. We do not have a significant interaction. So we can fill out 1 through 6 here. So is there a significant main effect of political orientation? Yes. And conservatives scored significantly higher on anti-feminist prejudice. There was a significant main effect of gender, with men scoring significantly higher on anti-feminist prejudice. And there was no significant interaction. So we should not see a divergent pattern of answers here for 6 and 7 or 8 and 9. So 6 and 7 should both be yes or both be no. And then for 8 and 9, the answer should both be yes or both be no. We should not see a yes, no, no, yes pattern for 6 or 7 or 8 or 9. We should not see divergent answers. So if we take a look at the simple effects output here, the first simple effects output, and here we're looking at the simple effects of, and remember in the simple effects table, right, it tells you down here, we're looking at the simple effects of political orientation at each level of the other independent variable here. So again, we're looking at the simple effects of political orientation at each level of gender for men versus women here. So we're asking, is there a difference between liberals and conservatives for men versus women? And so in the first row here, we have the simple effect of political orientation for men. And so we're looking at the difference between these cell means. And so here our sig value is 0.035, which is significant. So the simple effect of political orientation is significant for men. That is, liberals and conservatives differ in anti-feminist prejudice for men. So as we see, we're replicating the pattern that we saw with the main effect here, such that conservative men are reporting significantly more anti-feminist prejudice compared to liberal men. So that difference that we're finding overall between liberals and conservatives, that is replicating for men. And if we look here at the row for women, we see also that the simple effect of political orientation is significant for women. We have a p-value of 0.002, right? So significant. So the simple effect of political orientation is significant for women as well. So women are replicating that pattern that we saw with the main effect of political orientation. So conservative women are reporting significantly more anti-feminist prejudice compared to liberal women. So the simple effect of political orientation is significant for men as well as women. So we can say that conservatives reported more anti-feminist prejudice than liberals, right? Regardless of gender, right? Regardless of whether you're reported to be male or female. No big buts. Remember, when we have an interaction, significant interaction, there's always a big but no big buts here. And we didn't see any big buts with the next set of simple effects either. Here, we're looking at the simple effects of gender. Whoops, messed up the animation there. We're looking at the simple effects of gender at each level of political orientation. So here, we're asking whether there are gender differences for liberals versus conservatives. Because remember, overall, we found a gender difference such that men were reporting more anti-feminist prejudice compared to women. But will that replicate for both liberals and conservatives? So if we look at the first row here, we're looking at the simple effect of gender for liberals. So is there a gender difference for liberals? And we see, look at the sig value here, 0.039, right? So p-values are significant if they are less than or equal to 0.05. So we do have a significant p-value for liberals. So the simple effect of gender is significant for liberals. So we are finding a gender difference for liberals. And we see that the overall gender difference that this replicates for liberals, such that men are reporting more anti-feminist prejudice compared to women. So liberal men and liberal women differ. And again, we see that same pattern replicate for conservatives as well. So we look here at the simple effect of gender for conservatives, and we're getting the triple zeros to note that as p less than 0.001. So the simple effect of gender is significant for conservatives too. So we're replicating that same pattern, that same gender difference here among conservatives, where conservative men are reporting significantly more anti-feminist prejudice compared to conservative women. So the simple effect of gender is significant for both liberals and conservatives. The gender difference that we found overall, it is replicating for both liberals and conservatives. So we can say that men reported more anti-feminist prejudice than women, regardless of political orientation, regardless of whether you reported to be liberal or conservative. So if we look here, we can finish the questions here. So 6, is the simple effect of political orientation significant for women? Yes. And is the simple effect of political orientation significant for men? Yes. Right? We found a difference between liberals and conservatives for both women and men. Right? Conservatives reported more anti-feminist prejudice compared to liberals, and this held true for both women and for men. And we found significant simple effects of gender for both liberals and conservatives, right? We found the gender difference replicate for both liberals and conservatives. Men reported more anti-feminist prejudice compared to women, and this held true for both liberals and conservatives. So that is the check your learning exercise. If you want more practice in this PowerPoint, we have you can have more practice. So in the practice here, the third practice problem, if you want to do, we're looking at the effects of political orientation and gender. Should be, yeah, effects of political orientation and gender on prejudice toward people who believe in evolution, what I'm calling evolutionists. So we have this, similar 9 questions here. So you can go through the output, do the means table, do the line graph, take a look at the main effects and then the simple effects. And so I'll have the answers in here if you want more practice before you take lecture quiz 10. Otherwise, that finishes two-way ANOVA. Yeah, we done with two-way ANOVA.